What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Matt is Reading. This is Words of Radiance Part 3 and the interludes that end right at the end of Part 3. I must say, I have to say, I've been very excited to make this video because this is, I think, my favorite part in the series that have read yet. Some of the chapters are my favorite, and we'll get into that. Meet some really great characters. Some characters we haven't seen in a little bit have come back. Just everything about this part, everything's been leading up, and we start to see some of the payoff for some of the stuff that we've seen in the first two chapters, specifically the duels. We have a great duel that Adolin has with actually 4 shard bearers, including himself, or he's fighting against 4 shard bearers. So, incredible part. Let's get into it. One of the first things that we see in this part is the chapter that's called, excuse me, the chapter that was called A New Woman. And what that means is that Shalyn is just acting BA. It's chapter 36. She is just basically saying, I am going to full on take on this role of a Knight's Radiant. And I don't think she even considers herself a Knight's Radiant at this point. I think that there's still some confusion about what does it mean that I have this spren attached to me. And I think that's one of the amazing things about Shalyn is that so much of the power that she is displaying so far is just her figuring it out herself. Kaladin, when he was getting some of his power from Syl, he had Lopin and Sizgul and some other Herodasians who were able to help him figure out what does it mean that he's a Knight's Radiant? What are some of the powers that he's going to have? And they were figuring out what it looks like to run up a wall and fly all around. Shalyn has none of that. She's basically figuring this out all on herself. She has the pattern who is learning more with her, but the pattern can't provide like exactly what she needs to do to be able to be the full Knight's Radiant that she is. So very impressed with Shalyn. I had power rankings, I think, at one point. Kaladin, Shalyn, Jasna, Dalinar. And I think that Shalyn might have just went up one level in the power rankings for me. I think she's my favorite character so far in the Words of Radiance. So we see a boiling point also in this part with Adolin. He is fed up with Sades. He's had enough of him. He almost gets into a fight with Sades in the middle of a chapter. I actually thought that it was about to happen and that we were just going to have Adolin kill Sades and then things were going to like topple from there very quickly, but he restrains himself. Amaram is actually the one who talks him out of this fight. And Amaram is such a strange character because you hate him, you know that he's not a good character, but he seems to be tricking everybody that you trust in this book, especially Dalinar. I had a lot of frustrations with this part, with Dalinar. Amaram basically has convinced him that he is a good guy. And Dalinar at one point at the end tells Kaladin, I had 17 people look into the claims that you made about Amaram, and not one single person could back up the claims that you have, which leads me a little bit of a frustration with Kaladin and Dalinar's characters. Kaladin, he doesn't trust anybody. He doesn't trust Syl. He doesn't trust the Light Eyes. He doesn't trust Dalinar. He has no trust for anyone, which I get it based off of the story that we read from him in the first book, really, and then even part of this book. But part of me is like, Kaladin, let it go. You're going to have to trust somebody. I feel like this has just been drawn out for so long, his distrust for everyone, that I'm kind of ready for it to move on and get payoff for what he's going to become after he starts to trust anyone, especially Dalinar. At this point, I'm a big Dalinar fan. Obviously, I've said that. And I just wish that he at least trusted Dalinar to be responsible to unite the kingdoms. So we also meet Pelona, who is Cerebral's concubine, wife. It doesn't really specifically say, but Pelona is hilarious. I think she's a great character, and I'm really hoping to see more of Pelona throughout this. We also see in this part that Kaladin is coming more into his character, and I already said that Shalyn is coming more into her character as a Knight's Radiant. Both of them are getting more powerful at the same time. And my favorite chapter, I think, in the series so far was chapter 52. I love when Sanderson does this, where it's split off. It's one chapter, but it's 2 POVs. And you get a page of one POV, a page of the next POV, and it's bouncing back between Shalyn and Kaladin. Shalyn is going in to meet the Knight's Radiance, or I'm sorry, she's going in to meet the Ghost Bloods, whereas Kaladin is basically flying through the sky in very powerful ways, kind of like feeling getting his full power of a windrunner underneath of him. And Shallan is taking on this Vale character and is hiding under rocks, hiding from the Ghost Bloods, which the interaction with the Ghost Bloods was really cool. And I love that she was able to figure out that she still couldn't trust the Ghost Bloods, hid underneath a rock, and then the carriage that she was supposed to be getting in was ransacked. They actually killed the carriage driver, and she probably would have died, or at least would have had to fight off the Ghost Bloods, who seem to be very powerful people. She would have had to fight them off, but instead she uses Vale to go into Amaram's place, and she also was able to use her powers to hide from people, which is very cool. Shallan and Kaladin, in this part, they're really coming into their own as Knights Radiance. At this point, there's a chapter called Patriots where Kaladin meets Moash's friends. And basically, Moash's friends are saying that we are going to try to assassinate Elhokar because we believe that Elhokar is hindering Dalinar from taking on the kingdom, and they think that Dalinar would be a better king. And while all this is true, it doesn't really seem like Kaladin's character to just allow them to assassinate the king. But Kaladin seemingly is at least considering it, and I have a prediction, at least at this point, that I think that he will end up letting them do it. I don't know how that's going to affect him and then the rest of the story, but I do think that Kaladin's eventually going to allow Moash to kill Elhokar, or at least get rid of him so that Dalinar can take on King of Alethkar. So again, like I had already said, the fight that Adolin had, the duel where he's tricked and actually four shard bearers come out, and Sadie seems to be behind this. There was a rule that they had that there could also be two more people that went to help Adolin while he's fighting these shard bearers. Renarin goes out there and is basically useless. But then Kaladin comes out. Dalinar's like speaking to the crowd, looking at Amram, looking at all these people, basically saying like, why is nobody going to help Adolin? There are many shard bearers in here. Not one single person is going to help him. Kaladin goes in there. They basically end up winning. They win all of the shards. But then right at the end, Elhokar is allowing Adolin, gives him like the king's orders that he is able to have any command that he wants, and Adolin's going to say, I want to duel Sadies, and it's going to be this big payoff. But Kaladin also jumps in and says, I want to duel Amaram, and he ends up getting thrown in prison. Elhokar did not like that. He ends up getting thrown in prison, and the last chapter was called Never Again, because Kaladin at this point is basically like, I am never going to trust anyone. Again, digging further into that, I will never trust anyone ever. It's been challenging to read. It's not my favorite part of the story. I get it, but it makes me cringe whenever I read it because I know I'm only on book 2, but I already want some of the payoff of who he's growing. I want to see them, the Knights Radiance, come together in a powerful way, and we're just not there yet. So getting through, I'll call it the slog of Kaladin right now. I know he's going to be a great character. He has been a great character, but right now he's just completely frustrating. This takes me to the interludes at the end of part 2. Best interlude so far. The one with Lift, who seemingly as a Knights Radiant has to eat food to be able to have the power of being like slimy and able to use her spren, which is a vine, to climb things and also escape people. Very cool. She's such a cool character. It's the longest interlude that we might have had so far. So it was this whole story of her in Azir. So we get a lot of the kingdom of Azir. We see it. There's a new king. He's a 15-year-old prince that becomes king, or emperor, I think they call it in Azir. So a lot happens in that interlude, and then also a lot happens with Eshonai. There's one with Seth. It's a little bit smaller. At the end of it, he says that he's going to kill on his own accord, so I'm very curious to see how that pays off, but it was a very short interlude. The one with Eshonai also really drove the plot of the Parshmen being Voidbringers. So she took on the Storm form in one of the prior interludes, and now it seems like she's going crazy from this Storm form. Her character's changed so much. She hears voices in the back of her head that are screaming, and we don't really know what those are, but she has all of the people, all of the Parshmen who want to join a storm form, she builds an army of them, and then anybody who doesn't want to join it, she basically puts them on a island, and she was going to have them all killed, so there wouldn't be any of the Parshmen that were in Urethru at the time. None of the Parshmen were going to be able to, who didn't become Stormform, were going to be able to live. But Theud, one of the other very trusted captains of the Parshendi, he takes them, including Eshonai's mother, and kind of escapes with them. We don't know what happens to them, but they escape. So I feel like we're going to see a lot more of that further on. Maybe even in this book, they come and help stop the fight between the Parshendi and um, Alethkar on the Shattered Plains. But a couple predictions I have, and just thoughts in general. Shalyn, she is learning so quick. I think that she's going to be a hugely important character, not just in this book, but moving forward. Obviously, I could see her just kind of being almost a leader of the Knights Radiance, because unlike Kaladin really struggles with trusting anyone. Shalyn, I think, seemingly has a larger goal than just her own purpose. Whereas Kaladin, he seems to be doing things just for his own purpose right now. There's not really like a greater purpose for what he's doing other than he wants to just protect those who cannot protect themselves. I think that Shalyn and her role as a Knights Radiant is going to just play a big part in the story moving forward. That's all I had for part 2 or part 3. Sorry, I'm excited to keep going, excited to get more videos out on this. Again, this is just proving again to be my favorite so far. I'm excited for part 4 to get into it, and I'll come back with another video once I finished part 4. Until then, this is Matt is Reading, and you can always follow me on Peloton at Matt is Sweaty, and we'll see you next time.